to Game On DC, your home for local gaming and esports news in the DMV. Find the show on social media at Game On DC and by using the hashtag GoDC. Without further ado, here are your hosts, John and Joey.
What is up, DMV, and welcome to Game On DC, the show dedicated to you, the gamers and esports fanatics, right here in the East Coast capital of esports. My name is John Fiasco Byram, alongside Joey Courtside King McDermott. Joey, what's up, buddy? It's a Monday. It definitely feels like a Monday.
Yeah, this Monday hit hard. We were guests actually on Eric SB Transmissions on his podcast last night, doing some Star Wars tabletop gaming or virtual tabletop gaming, I guess in this case. It was a lot of fun, but it went a little bit late, John. And I'm not gonna lie, I woke up very tired today afterwards. A lot of energy back then.
Be honest, how late did you stay up after that show concluded last night?
Oh, I think I fell asleep a little after 2.
Okay, there you go. All right. All right, DMV, the live show is where all the fun happens, but have no fear if you're unable to tune in Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time here on twitch.tv/OTN Media. There is a podcast version of the show that's usually available the very next morning. Yeah, that's some quick turnaround time, if I do say so myself. You can find it at Game On DC, pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast feed. Mainly iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher, but there's others out there. Just look up Game On DC. And while you are at it, you better be following the show. We got all the cool stuff. We got all the cool connections with all the great gamers and coaches and managers here in the DMV area. And we'll put all that amazing content up on the social media feed as well. That's at Game On DC, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, it's there. And of course, we have a YouTube channel that you can find all the VODs as well. Just take a look at OTN Media when you search for that. All right, Joey, are we ready to go? Wait, I didn't even give ourselves a shout out yet. Joey, you can be found on social media at Courtside King. That's the Instagrams, that's the Twitters for the Courtside King. You can find myself at Fiasco on the Twitters and the Instagrams as well. Yeah, that's pretty much all. That's the only places you can find us. Yeah, we don't have our own YouTube channels or anything like that. We're not that cool. All right, Joey, we have the social media homework out of the way. Let's go ahead and just start with the team here in the DMV that I feel like is going to need to purchase 2 floors in their practice facility now. One for the players to practice in, and the front office for their coaching staff and their managers and everyone involved. For WizDG, and the second floor just for a freaking trophy cabinet, because not only have they gone back to back, they're adding more hardware to their trophy cabinet, some personal accolades, if you will. Joey, it's really no surprise if you ask anybody who listens to Game On DC, if they talk to you, if they talk to me, if they talk to anybody that doesn't have their head in the sand, you would know head coach Pat Crossan is the coach of the year for the NBA 2K League. I made an argument that he should have been coach of the year last year as well. Obviously, the rest of the league didn't feel that way, but nonetheless, Pat finally gets the recognition he totally deserves, just with all the hard work, dedication, and all the time he's put in with this organization and the players. Joey, he's the original coach here for WizDG, dating all the way back to before Season 1. And look, we'll be honest, for WizDG fans, if you were there back in Season 1 and Season 2, it was not pretty. There are a lot of things that this team needed to get better at back in Season 1 and Season 2. Yes, they made the playoffs in Season 1. They were a low seed. They didn't last around too long. Season 2 was pretty much the dark times, if you will. They had some issues with player personnel, but Season 3, they were able to bounce back. Obviously, they go on to win the championship, and they do it again in Season 4. So head coach Pat Crossan, rightfully so, coach of the year for 2021.
Yeah, and that goes very much hand in hand with Dave Fry coming over as well, in my opinion. Season 2 did end up a little bit rougher, and I would argue that part of that is with players being dismissed, and then the pick coming in didn't quite equate to the level of skill of the player that was dismissed. So I think that comes down to it a bit. In the end, though, that trade for Dave Fry ended up really sparking some hope into this team, and since then, we've seen them build upon it just alongside Pat's coaching really as well, continuing to grow year over year, and again, the first team to win 2 back-to-back championships.
Absolutely, and you want to throw something else into that was a big factor there too. Getting the first overall draft pick, much like the Washington Wizards that year, they had a fairly low shot at getting the first pick. I believe WizDG had a 9% chance at getting the number 1 overall seed in the NBA 2K League draft that year, and they got it. Sometimes a little luck on your side plays off. But Joey, I mean, you and I can attest talking to Pat throughout that entire offseason. I mean, he put in the hours, he put in the research to all the players, narrowed everything down to a small handful of players that he felt would fit what he wanted WizDG to become. And, ultimately he got his guy. He got JBM. He came in, was an absolute game changer for WizDG in that back-to-back effort. So head coach, again, Pat Crossan, coach of the year 2021 for the NBA 2K League. Joey, but the awards don't end there, not even close. Did you have anything else for Pat before I moved on?
I mean, I could say one more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Just along that line, like with you talking about the draft.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that Pat did that was cool, and just the Wizards organization in general, is they involved players with that process as well. A lot of GMs will just take that upon themselves and say, hey, these are the players you're going to get, or these are the players you're going to play with, or whatever, depending on who they're talking to. Pat really involved the team. Like we heard Dave Fry giving insight into it. And I think that's something very interesting as far as his coaching style, really making it where he's inciting knowledge, but he's also bringing in and making it a team effort as well.
And oh my goodness, Joey, as you're saying that, I'm pulling up the stats here on the NBA 2K League website. They have redone their stat page. So a big thank you to the NBA 2K League for finally getting rid of their horrific webpage design that they've had all season long. With that being said, now I'm having a hard time finding everything that I wanted to find here for the next award I want to talk about. I really don't need stats because at the end of the day, his stats were great, but they're not going to be number 1 and number 2 in the league. Mainly, it came down to his style of play when the pressure rose, when the team needed to force a turnover, when the team needed a big stop. He was usually the player that stepped up. He was the player that had no problem not dropping 34 points a game. He realized that he had a role to play, and that role was to cause the other team to turn the ball over, to force mistakes, to force those stupid fouls, to really hurt the other team's chances of trying to get into the game. And that's just awkward. He has been an absolute menace for other teams. I mean, he is a matchup nightmare. Ever since he came into the league last year in Season 3, he has been a defensive juggernaut in the NBA 2K League. At one point in time, averaging almost 2.5 steals per game. And that's not bad. 2.5 steals a game is great. There's some games he's had 5. There's some games he's had 6. There's some games where he doesn't get credited with a steal, but forces a bad pass because of the pressure. And again, we've mentioned it here on the show. This team was such a 5-headed monster. When other teams would lock down JBM or lock down Nudini or Dave Fry or B-Rich, Just Awkward dropped like 37 points in one game. Like, it's pick your own poison. Just Awkward knows exactly what role to play on this team. He's done it for 2 years in a row now, and he's finally getting that recognition that he deserves as well, along with head coach Pat Crossan. He is our defensive player of the year, and rightfully so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you covered pretty much all the bases there. Just Awkward has proved himself time and time again and doing it all season long here in the end, getting rewarded for it. Rightfully deserved, in all honesty. Both these awards, I feel like most players you talk to, most coaches you talk to, definitely feel that both Pat and Just Awkward deserve these.
Okay, so still playing around with this website. This is kind of nice now, all right? So in 2021, 26 games played, which, if my math is correct, that might be correct. He played the entire game. Fun fact, when you don't have subs, NBA 2K League, there's really no point in tracking minutes. That's just neither here nor there. Averaged almost 10 points per game. He had a field goal percentage of almost 70%, right? He had a three-point percentage of 63%, 90% from the free throw line. And let's see here. Steals, he ended the season with 1.7 per game. But again, that doesn't tell the whole story. I mean, this guy, absolute menace on the defensive side of the ball. If you follow WizDG's social media channels at all, especially on Twitter, he's gone on there to talk about his role on this team and how he's completely fine with this role. A lot of times, a lot of players want to be that high-scoring player. They want to be that LeBron of the 2K League. And sometimes, while that's great, not everyone gets to shoot the ball that much. Like, everyone can't be that player. And he gets that. And his role on the defensive side of the ball is being an absolute juggernaut, forcing the team into those turnovers. Rightfully so. He deserves that title. And again, the trophy cabinet for WizDG continues to grow.
Absolutely. Very well deserved. But John, let's dive a little bit into that All-Star game, because that just happened as well. We had some representatives from WizDG over there. How did that end up going?
Yeah, so, nothing can be perfect, as we've learned. The Western Conference, they've been held to no wins in a championship game for a while now, as the last two have gone to the Eastern Conference because WizDG. But in the first ever All-Star game, the Western Conference does defeat the Eastern Conference in a best-of-3 series, 2-0. Game 1 was a little bit of a blowout. Game 2 was a lot closer. It was a one-possession game going down to the final seconds. But nonetheless, the West takes home the first ever All-Star game win and a pretty nice prize pool as well. But nonetheless, our WizDG reps in JBM, Just Awkward, Dave Fry, and Coach Pat now get to go into the offseason. They get to celebrate and take in that back-to-back NBA 2K League championship experience and hopefully gear up for another run at it in Season 5 next year.
Absolutely. And now we're a DC-centric podcast here, but a big congratulations to the West there. That is definitely not an easy achievement, overcoming, a good chunk of the WizDG team here in JBM, Dave Fry, Just Awkward, coached by Pat Crossan. That is not an easy obstacle to overcome, but they did get the job done. As you said, though, the boys can now head into the offseason, relax a little bit, enjoy their time off, and maybe start hitting the sticks for the new NBA for next season.
Absolutely. And fun fact, all the players so far love the new build for 2K22. I myself will not be participating in the Combine this year once again. I am not that good, and I will continue to practice and get better. JBM, I need me some lessons, man. You got to hook me up here. Come on, Jack. All right, Joey. So there is one other team that was in action towards the end of the season. Of course, that is the Washington Justice of the Overwatch League. Joey, a roller coaster would probably be the best analogy here to describe the season for the Washington Justice. Started out hot, brand new roster, a lot of hype on paper. These are very talented players going into the regular season. Started out hot, hero bands came in, kind of cooled off a little bit, and it's been up and down all regular season. But for the play-ins, for the postseason, they came out guns a-blazing. They took down Paris, they took down Houston, and they punched their ticket into the playoffs, where in the first round, they got to go up against the familiar face in the Dallas Fuel. Joey, the Justice held a watch party in the downtown Washington, D.C. headquarters. About 30 to 35 amazing Washington Justice fans. There we go. I gotta remember the right team here. Packed the headquarters to cheer the Justice on. Unfortunately, Dallas has become a very tough team as the course of the season has gone on. The Justice started off hot, taking the first point. Control, which I feel like a lot of Justice fans feel very, very confident on, and rightfully so. Then they dropped the next 3 to the Dallas Fuel. And it was a tough match. Like, you could see the players, they were grinding. They were trying their hardest. It was one of the things where it just didn't fall into place the way they wanted it. It was a tough way to lose to Dallas in that 3-1 fashion.
Yeah, for sure. And Dallas came in as the number 2 seed. The Justice came in as the lowest seed in the actual playoffs themselves at the 8 seed. I think overall we've matched up well against Dallas this year. We took the win initially, then we came back. They took the win, but it went all 5 maps. So in the end, I feel like it was a good matchup. Unfortunately, there were a couple mistakes here and there. We did take that first point, as you mentioned. But once we moved from control, it seemed like we started to get a little bit weaker. We lost the double cap. And then we ended up losing the hybrid and escort, which we have shown some weakness on throughout. We did contest pretty decently for the most part. We were only 1 point behind, I believe, on both of those. But one of them, the ending in particular, was a little bit of a sour taste in our mouth as Justice fans, as the guys, unfortunately, were not able to get back on point in time. So it was tough to watch. Unfortunately, it was going to be a tough circumstance either way. But in the end, they did drop that one to Dallas 3-1.
I just have to say this, at least we didn't play on Junkertown. That was the one thing I asked. And the Overwatch League gods responded by blessing us with not Junkertown. So I thank them for that.
I mean, some of the maps we did get, though, were not great either.
No, they
like Volskaya, we've been very shaky on. Kings Row, I don't think we've done very well on overall, and Rialto's another one, and we got 3 of those. So in the end, I mean, Volskaya is probably the closest to a coin toss that we had, but the 2 hybrid and escort, for those being our weaker modes, John, those were not the maps we wanted to see come up outside of Junkertown, of course. But overall, it was a tough showing against Dallas. I still think we could have come out on that one 3-2, but they were a very strong team regardless.
We only get one wish per series, Joey, and I'm sorry I spent it on Junkertown. I do apologize. I will take the blame for that one. But Joey, the beautiful thing with the Overwatch League is it's double elimination. So after that tough outing against Dallas, the Justice dropped down to the lower bracket for a chance at Second Life, and they would play the loser of the Atlanta Reign versus the Hunters. Joe, you and I were talking about this after that Dallas defeat, and really the question became, who do we not want to face? And I think, we settled on the Hunters. I mean, there's not a good answer.
We didn't want to face either one of them.
Yeah, the Reign's a tough team. The Hunters are a tough team. It's just one of those. It's like, okay, well, who do you think you match up against the best? And I think a lot of people expected the Hunters to win. They did. So the Reign dropped down, and we got to go up against our East Coast friends down from Atlanta. And Joey, it just wasn't our year. Is what it comes down to. The roller coaster season, continued here in the postseason as well. It was a 3-0 sweep for the Atlanta Reign, ending the Washington Justice 2021 season here in the playoffs. Again, 3-0 straight. It was, I believe, Nepal, Anubis, and Kings Row as your 3, as I slightly turn to my side monitor so I can cheat here a little bit. And it was a tough outing. It was 2-0s for the first 2 maps, and on Kings Row, it was a 3-1. And it was one of those days where you saw how hard the team fought. Like, you're watching the face cams, and you can see the emotion on the players' faces for the Washington Justice, given that they're all, they know how important this is, not just to the city, but to the organization and to themselves as players and as a team. They know what they're capable of. And it was just heartbreaking to watch as this series went on, up to that very final moment on Kings Row, where they were eliminated from the postseason. It was just very tough and hard to watch because the players took it seriously. I mean, they took it to heart. They do not like losing. And from our interviews with them, and especially from head coach Supreme, when we've had a chance to talk with him, not only here on the show but on the coach streams. This is a team that prides themselves in their craft, in their ability to play this game, in their ability to be teammates and pull together for one another. And it's just tough when it just doesn't go your way, especially when you go up against 2 tough teams in back-to-back nights.
And now, John, you're telling me that professional players want to win. Is that what I'm getting out of this? I feel like that just went over the head of like some producers out there and stuff lately. But yeah, I think in the end, it just really comes down to it. Like, we had a decent draw. We had Nepal. We've done well on Nepal in the past. We had Anubis, another map that is not really too shabby for us. We've had some really strong wins there. You have to win one of those 2, though. Regardless of what the map is, if we come out and we don't have a control win or we don't have a double capture win, which I can never remember the name of that actual game mode, if we don't get a win in one of those 2 game modes, then I don't feel comfortable at all going into hybrid and escort. We're most likely going to drop either that hybrid or escort map. So not having one of those other ones as a buffer is a big hit against this team. Once they went down 0-2, even as a fan, it was tough to cheer going forward. Obviously, you're cheering on Kings Row. You want them to come back and win. But there was always that little bit in my back of my mind that I'm like, oof, we have to win these next 2 maps, and it is not going to be easy on these 2 types of maps. So in the end, we did drop. We fell 3-0 here. I feel like it's a valiant effort, a valiant season, ups and downs throughout it. Like you mentioned, I think that hero bans in particular were really shaky weeks for us when those bans came out. Some of them were just a lack of time to adjust to them. other ones where we had tough opponents right after bans came out. In the end, those ended up really shaking up the season and resulted in a sense of us having a lower seed later on down the line in the playoffs.
Absolutely. So in a less than stellar end to the season for the Justice. But Joey, if there's one thing we know with our relationship with that organization and the staff there that we talk to, they're going to bounce back. They are hungry. They do not settle for just making the playoffs. They don't settle for making it through the play-ins and taking down Paris and taking down Houston. They want a title. They want to bring a title back to DC. They want to win the league. This is a team that is hungry to win and be successful, and they don't want to stop short of anything less than success. So I fully expect them to bounce back. And it's kind of fun. You mentioned that one guy that is part of the production team. I find it ridiculous that anyone would think that the idea of Overwatch 2 being the game that they're going to be playing on Overwatch League next year would be the driving factor to just try to end the season and move on. Let's all remember, Overwatch 2 is 5v5. The off tank is essentially being dropped from the lineup. It is 1 tank, 2 DPS, 2 healers. One person on every team is essentially losing their job. I found it ridiculous and highly unprofessional that anybody involved in the league would come out and say the players just kind of gave up or they just they weren't focused enough because the draw of being in Hawaii and going to the beach or the draw of Overwatch 2 where someone's going to lose their job is too strong. Whether it was a joke or not, it was a bad joke. I don't think anybody laughed one bit. But with that being said, it is a real thing that we can touch on very briefly here. Is Overwatch 2 is that 5v5? The off tank is being dropped. The whole game itself is going to be played differently because of this, and we're already seeing some character changes being rolled out. This is something that's going to have to take a lot that the team's going to have to take a lot into consideration and going into the off season. Is what are we going to expect in Overwatch 2 for the league? What is the meta going to be? How is this game going to be played? And does our current roster fit that play style? That's a big question that not only the Justice have to ask, but every team around the league, including the new league champions, the Shanghai Dragons, are going to have to ask themselves that same question: is how do we fit this team that we currently have for Overwatch 2?
I mean, I'm not going to get too much into it. If you guys want to hear my full thoughts on that, you can tune in to Level Up on Thursday. We're going to keep things a little tamer on here. But yeah, I think that's a big question mark for a lot of teams. Like, how are you going to adapt? But I also think it comes down to the developers. Like, how are we adapting these kits to fit? And we've now got to look at Sombras. We've got to look at Bastion. We have a look at some new skins as well with like Reinhardt. In the end, there's still so many question marks. If you look at all the tanks and you look at the full like roster of off tanks and full main tanks, there are a lot of different units in there, a lot of different heroes to play as, and how that's going to translate into this one new role. I feel like, are we going to still have hero bans because they make even less sense then at that point? And then looking at it overall, like how is the meta going to shift? How are the rosters going to shift? Like John said, because you're going from a 6-person roster to a 5-person. How many subs do you carry in that sense? And I mean, there's just question marks all across the board. And for me, the biggest question mark is, will Overwatch 2 actually be done by the time that the next season kicks off? Will this next season get delayed? And whether they want to say it will or not, we've seen so many delays come out in the gaming industry. You've had mega hits like Halo get delayed. You've had Elden Ring get delayed. I mean, Ratchet and Clank got delayed from PlayStation for a few months. The Last of Us got delayed. Like, we're talking big AAA titles. Overwatch is not necessarily not going to be a victim of that. They could easily have another delay come down the line as well. So I think if I'm going to ask one question overall, it's like, when is this game actually going to come out and what's it going to be?
Well, you know the old saying in the gaming industry, Joey, the third gaming director is the charm. So with that, we don't you shake my head. That was good. That was a good one.
We're throwing a lot of shade on this episode over here.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So unfortunately, that again, the Justice season coming to an end here, as well with the rest of the Overwatch League, as that did wrap up last week as well. Again, the Shanghai Dragons crowned the champions for 2021, which is kind of a cool storybook story there. Joey, just remember back in season 1, they were like 0-46. They didn't win a single game until season 2. And now here they are a couple years later, and they're the champs. Granted, it's a complete roster overhaul, but still, for an organization to bounce back, I think that's kind of cool. So with that, Joey, the pro scene, as of right now, obviously we're still following the Call of Duty League and the potential of a team coming to Washington, D.C. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep you up to date as soon as we learn anything new that you don't already know from the articles already out there. We'll definitely keep you up to date. So that's another reason why you should be following it on social media here at Game On DC. Joey, but the collegiate season is starting up this week. And of course, Joey, talk about the Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's going to be League of Legends, Overwatch, and Rocket League. We're going to plug Rocket League a little bit here because at least according to their website, that's the only one that actually has a schedule posted here real quick. So I'm going to pull that up here real quick. So the Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference tournament schedule, Joey, it all starts this Wednesday, the 29th. They just had their placement tournament this past weekend to figure out what the divisions are going to be. And week 1 starts this Wednesday on the 29th. It's a 7 p.m. kickoff. Pre-game show, I believe, is around 6:45. It's going to be on the Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference Twitch channel, so make sure you tune in for that. Not just because you're going to see amazing Rocket League action, not just because you should support your local collegiate esports scene, but if you want to see more of Joey and myself, there's no other better place on Wednesday nights to go than the Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference. We will be there shoutcasting for the second year in a row the Rocket League scene. It's always great to shoutcast with the Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference. I'm a little stuffy. My allergies are kicking my butt today.
You're just really emotional about the start of the MAEC.
No,
I'm sure, right?
I literally cannot breathe through my nose right now. And it's driving me up a wall. But yeah, that starts off this Wednesday, 7 p.m. It's going to be very exciting. It's going to be 8 matches every Wednesday night right there on the Twitch channel for Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference. And I just want to scroll down here real quick on this page because it has last year's spring standings here. This does not show you who won in the tournament, but George Mason's A team went 6-0. They had the perfect season. You had George Washington University, again, perfect season as well, 5-0. The numbers are a little skewed here, obviously, based upon the divisions not being even. There were some teams that had to drop out throughout the season. Things were a little wonky in season 1. Figured things out in season 2, in the second season now for the Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference. Joey, they've added a university, an Averett University in Danville, Virginia. They'll be joining the league as well as joining Howard Community College, Mason, Hood College, Shenandoah Catholic, VCU, Randolph-Macon, and GW. I mean, it is an absolute all-star Mid-Atlantic cast here for the Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good things going for this. And in particular, we had a lot of fun doing it last year. It's a great cast. All guys jumping into chat here and there after and before their matches. It's fun to get that interaction. And it's fun to build the stories over the course of the season as well. Now, with it being a collegiate esport versus professional, you do typically see a little bit more of those roster moves happen here and there with seniors graduating. As in esports, you'll see like your Cloud9s buy out $6 million contracts. Not quite that much money being thrown around in collegiate esports, but you do have a little shakeups here and there with those graduations, as well as bigger universities. For example, George Mason carries a couple different teams as well. So sometimes you'll get shifts over the course of the season with one player maybe shifting up to a roster versus a B roster or a green and a gold roster, depending how they end up making that split. So it's fun. It's fun to follow the storylines. It's fun to keep an eye out on the stats over the course of the season. And like you said, John, if you go back to the standings, George Mason A and George Washington both going undefeated. That didn't happen in playoffs. We did end up with an all Shenandoah final, Shenandoah A and Shenandoah B, finalizing that bracket with Shenandoah A taking the win. So the playoffs were pretty exciting as well. Outside of the regular season, you still brought that spice too.
Absolutely. It was absolutely fantastic. The regular season is great, but when it comes to the postseason, anybody can win regardless of your overall record. And that's what we saw last year. It's going to be really exciting. This will culminate at the Winter Games for the championship. That's going to be December 3rd through the 5th. That's going to be the championships for all the divisions. It's going to be for Rocket League, Overwatch, and League. It's going to come to a championship end at the Winter Games, December 3rd through 5th. And Joey, that's going to be live broadcasted from the Game Gym up in Maryland. Our good friends up there running the league and all the production. Super excited to work with everyone again back at the Game Gym and the Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference. And again, if you are looking for esports to watch now that WizDG is done, now that the Washington Justice are done, this is the place to be. The Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference is really setting the tone for collegiate leagues all throughout the country. There's a lot of eyes on this league, so definitely tune in. You're going to see some amazing action, whether it's Rocket League, whether it's Overwatch, whether it's League. Mid-Atlantic Esports Conference is the place to be, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And like you said, with it being season 2, I'm curious to see what changes we end up seeing. Like some of those players coming back with improvements, some new blood into the mix, maybe some new coaching changes, maybe even some new jerseys and logos that are esports specific. I'm very curious to see how it all shakes out with this new season ahead.
All right, Joe, I think that's going to wrap it up for today's show. We covered quite a bit. It was another action-packed episode of Game on DC. More trophies handed out in the DMV area on the personal accolade side of everything. So really, really exciting there. Again, head coach Pat Crossan, coach of the year and just awkward defensive player of the year in the NBA 2K League. Congratulations to both coach and player, as well as an absolutely fantastic accomplishment there. But that will do it for this week's episode of Game on DC. If you do enjoy Game on DC, we want to hear from you. Leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. It doesn't matter. We want to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe and follow on social media to keep up with all the gaming and esports news here in the DMV. Joey, where can the listeners go to follow Game on DC?
Absolutely. DMV listeners, head on over to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and find us at Game on DC. You can also find us on YouTube and Twitch at OTN Media. Last but not least, if you're on socials, use hashtag GoDC as well. We check that regularly too.
All right, make sure you tune in next Monday, October 4th. Joey, it's October already. As we continue to cover the esports news here in the DMV, make sure you do your ears and eyes a favor. Hit that sub and follow button to know when the next episode of Game on DC is ready for your viewing and listening pleasures. We'll catch you all on Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week. And as always,
Game on DC.